Yeah, I usually do talks about other topics. So for me, just to kind of set expectations, to lower expectations, this is the first time I do a talk about team structures and organizing for desired outcomes. And usually after a few times you get into the flow and have a nice story, but let's give it a shot now. And it already starts with a difference between what Joep shared, because in your slide it said like organizing teams and long-term planning or something, and I have a different title. So here we go already, first catch. But anyway. Iterative approach. Exactly, yeah. So if you came for the other topic, sorry, that's no. I'll cover some of the other parts as well about planning automatically. So having said that, question to you all is how many product teams you have in your organization, so to kind of understand what we have. So who has like more than 30 teams in your organization? All right. Where do you work? Rabobank. And? ASML. Okay, yeah, that's definitely more than 30 teams, yeah. You probably have 30 departments who have 30 teams, something like that, yeah. All right, more than, so between 20, 30? Yeah? Jumbo, okay, yeah. All right, yeah. In the port of, well, not, yeah, all right. And below 20? All right. I have a startup with one. Ah, good, okay. Only one. All right, so, yeah, works really well, just doesn't scale that well, but it's like, but it's very easy to organize, and you can set your own goals. So it's like you never have like discussions, what should we do? You just do it yourself. Exactly, yeah. So yeah, so I currently work at Ascent in the delivery organization, so software development and operations, but I've also worked at much smaller companies. Yeah, not really startups, but yeah, often with like five to 10 teams. And what you often see is that, yeah, the bigger you get quite some challenges that tend to slow you down, and you get all sorts of issues where, yeah, for example, you have 20 people, then you get some budget to move to 40 people, and people think you can deliver twice as much, but you can actually only deliver maybe 1.5 times as much. And well, there's like multiple causes of that. If you look at Ascent, there are like maybe one of the reasons of sort of diminishing returns is that we have partially still a tightly coupled architecture, which was never an issue before, because energy was a pretty much low interest product. Like, yeah, nobody was really interested in gas or electricity. You just buy it and you get it. The price is pretty stable. And then, like, yeah, some time ago with the war in Ukraine, all the geopolitical stuff, inflation, energy transition, interest of people in sustainability. Suddenly it became a high interest product, so traffic went up. So scalability became an issue, but also so much product plans that we have, so much vision we want to achieve with our, what we call one-stop energy shop. So where you can basically get your solar panels, your heat pumps, gas, electricity, who knows in the future, batteries, and all sorts of services around that. And that requires so much product development that, you go from a current number of teams to many more teams. But we also have decisions from the past, which, back then they made sense. And in a new situation, you need something else. So you cannot really say that decisions were bad back then. With the information and the context, then it was good, but now it's not good anymore. So teams is just one part. That's actually what I want to say. And the other part is, also architectural dependencies, platform dependencies, like do you need to wait, do you need to raise a ticket, or can I just call an API and get something, that sort of stuff. And we're making steps in that. And what I wanted to talk about is I'd like to share a bit about how we think about organizing teams in the future compared to today. I want to check who is familiar with the team types and communication types of team topologies. So that's a little quiz. Yeah, okay. And I'm going to check if you know the collaboration types and the team types. And then, of course, a little bit of Conway's law, because like any IT presentation needs to have something of Conway's law. Otherwise, you need to have a check in the box there, right? Otherwise, you failed anyway. And then I have 3 cases of assent, where I'd like to hear from you what you would do. And there, yeah, the essence is, in my opinion, although you have team topologies with certain team types and things that make sense on PowerPoint level, in real life there are trade-offs, and yeah, there is a good reason to make a choice for a certain team, although it doesn't just have benefits but also comes with drawbacks. So that's that. So yeah, what we currently have, and I'll show you a picture of our team structures a few slides later as well, is that yeah, we have a lot of technology-oriented teams, and not so much, well, also a lot of product-oriented teams, but I'd like to actually see that more. So teams solving a customer problem, and also teams owning a service within our landscape of loosely coupled services. And like I said, we currently have a landscape of pretty tightly coupled services, and moving away from that. But what we want to do is actually in line with Conway's law. So here's a check on the box on Conway's law. We want to actually organize our teams in such a way that it's in line with where we want to head. So if we want to have an invoice service, a payment service, a contract service, a proposition service, so typical things that a company would have, right? Whether you sell energy or something else. Yeah, we want to have a team, an invoice team, a payment team, and so forth. The teams are called differently because the teams always come up with nerdy names. But anyway, that's basically what they do. And then we also want them to build and own that invoice service, that payment service, collection service, and so forth. And what you see now is that we, for example, also have teams that do TIPCO. But TIPCO, yeah, we don't sell TIPCO, so that's not like a very much customer-aligned team. And what you get if you have a team that does TIPCO, yeah, then you get TIPCO. Not very much focused on outcomes for customers, and that's where Conway's law comes in, that these days we have more and more discussions on how do we actually organize teams so that in 1 or 2 years' time we end up with the product vision we have for customers. So a one-stop energy shop, and how do we then organize our teams so that we actually get that. It also makes me think of one example I often give. When I started working, I worked for KPN. It was late 90s. A lot of IT people worked for KPN once. They were like one of the biggest employers back then. And KPN had 5 CRM systems, and that was because they had 5 business units. And then they had to compete with incumbents in the market who provided subscriptions like, hey, you can get TV, internet, telephony, and whatever. And they had a hard time doing that because offering that in one shop is very hard if you have like 5 business units with 5 IT landscapes. And that's what you need to think about when you about the move we want to make. We want to have that, like, of everything just one, for your solar panels, your heat pump, your batteries, for your gas, for your electricity. So one invoice, one offer that includes it all, one app that has insights and everything, and no different. And that's where how we want to bring our teams in line with that, which we are currently already doing a lot. So that's the good news. But we also, because of the technical depth, like the architectural things, we also have some challenges here still to tackle. So this is Mel Conway, in case you didn't know, but it's more than just a name. And he's pretty old already. And yeah, what we want to do is we want to organize the teams in line with customer needs, products that we offer to customers, services that we offer to customers, and then give them the goal to solve these problems in line with the target architecture, so we build independent services. But for that we also need to build teams with enough seniority, because that means you need to take ownership of things. And what we also need to learn is that if you ask ownership of people, that we give also agency to people, so that people have the feeling that they have influence. Because what I learned when I joined here, sometimes management was complaining like, hey, why do they not pick up the phone? Why do they not acknowledge an Opsgenie issue? People are pretty much happy to help you in evening hours or weekends, but not if they don't have agency on how things are built. They want to be able to make decisions. Okay, if you call me in the evening for a production issue, then listen to me when I tell you that we need to improve on the non-functionals. So yeah, that's the direction we're heading. We already have a lot of customer-focused teams. We still need to take steps in loosely coupled architecture, so that they build their own independent services that you can build, deploy, and run independent from others. And we're building these teams with enough seniority, with people who can take ownership, and so that we can basically in parallel with all the teams build, deploy, and run. So that's that for where we're heading. Before I show you a picture of the teams that we have, the test on the team topologies. So what are the 4 team types? I saw some people raising hands that they read the book, but do you also remember the 4 team types? Anyone? Yeah. 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 So complicated subsystem, platform, enablement, and stream aligned. Yeah, so yeah. So the stream aligned is the one where you probably, if you're organized well, I think, have the most of, right? So the business stream aligned, so that's what I meant with the product customer focus. And then the other 3, the platform team and the complicated subsystem and the enablement team, they are basically helper teams for the stream aligned team. So this is indeed, so this is what we want, and what we also have a lot, and that's also related to our current architecture. We have some complicated subsystems. So what a word, man! Subsystem teams like SAP Basis team, a team that does TIPCO development, a team that does a technical transition from one application to the other. They are not really focused on a customer problem, they are focused on a technical trick. So it becomes hard to then focus on, to link that to your company strategy and to give them a purpose. It's not hard to give them a goal, like, transition from this to that, but it doesn't add much value. So we have we want to, actually, I think, lower a bit on this, increase this, and we've also introduced platform teams who make sure that the stream-aligned teams can actually autonomously build, deploy, and run on a self-service platform. And an enabling team that helps in the transition, especially there where we move from TIPCO, low-code, to services written in TypeScript running on Lambda. So that's how it looks. And then the 3 interaction types. So these are the 4 team types, the 3 interaction types, of which we use one a lot, where we should not be proud of, but we do. It's collaboration. Collaboration is one. Access a service. Access a service. Facilitating, good, yes. All right, nice that actually people really like, you see a lot of people have like books on the shelf, but did you actually read it? But you guys actually read it, that's nice. Yeah. So, so these are the collaboration or communication types. So collaboration, access a service, and facilitating. And I think I said, people correct me if I'm wrong, but I think especially an enablement team is very much facilitating, helping others to make steps. Um, our platform teams are still often driven by triggers like, can you do this for me? And then they have to manually do something. But in the future, we want to have that self-service platform where you can just instantiate anything yourself, as long as you also run it yourself, of course, and make sure it's within budget. And we have a lot of collaboration, and that's also needed because it's also tightly coupled. So what you see then is that we have like more or less quarterly planning sessions. And are people familiar with SAFe, Scaled Agile Framework? Yep, so love it. Yeah, Joep is a big fan. Yeah. And so we have like, like it's approximately quarterly planning ceremony with all the teams, where you sort of try to plan something that, of course, always after one sprint always works out differently. But anyway, we give it a shot every quarter. And that's like an example of a lot of collaboration, and that's needed because of the tightly coupled landscape and the dependencies. Because, yeah, if my team wants to deliver a new version of a service, then maybe it runs on the same infrastructure or maybe on the same TIBCO-like platform as your team, and if I move to production, you need to also regression test, that sort of stuff. But also, if I need to do something on AWS and I need a cloud account for that, while the platform team hasn't automated it yet, and I need to create I'm dependent on them, and I need to plan it on their backlog. That's why we want a platform team that does it in the X as a service way, of course. But because we have so much collaboration, we have still pretty high ceremony planning. But the good thing is, we're working towards, we have specific teams, and I'll tell you a bit about it as well, that help us make the transition from a tightly coupled landscape with pretty big full domains on platforms like TIBCO in our case, to teams who have all the skills and people with the right behavior who build independent services on that self-service platform. And that's where we're moving to. And we started it last year, or maybe even a bit earlier. And we think we can really make a huge step this year, at least with technical transition to that new landscape. And then in parallel, make steps with the platform teams. So it's going to look really good in a year's time.
Do a lot of collaboration, which sounds good, but I think I hear you say we have a lot of dependencies and we call it collaboration.
Yeah, so in the sense of the team topologies book, it's of course collaboration is good, yeah, because if we wouldn't, then it would be even would be messy. So we make sure it's not a mess and it's still a good place to work because of the collaboration. But in the end, you want a different type of teams working together. If I build a contract service and you have a front-end application that you need, and you need to call the contract service, it would be cool if I can just tell you, like, here's the API, here's the documentation, go ahead. A bit like when you use Amazon, right? I also don't call Amazon to, like, can you please create a machine for me? They just have an API and it works. That's how we need to do it internally as well. And then you move to the other types of interaction. So, of course, collaboration is positive, yeah. It's expensive, yeah, good. All right. This is a picture of, in SAFe terms, are art, so they're organized by journeys. I join, I use, I pay, and then I engage is more data-driven, providing input for the other journeys to build solution, and I interact has the solutions where we have client-facing stuff, applications. And then this is enablement and platform, basically the horizontal layer. And then in each box you have the teams. So you have in SAFe terms, it's an art, agile release train, the verticals. Other companies call it a department or a domain or whatever. And within there you have the teams. So my question is, looking at the 4 team types and the collaboration modes, and the fact that we want to organize teams in line with outcomes, do you see some things that you think like, maybe not so good, or yeah, maybe good? If you don't see them right away, I can just point one of it, which I think is interesting to discuss. But sorry, oh, it's too small. Okay, so you can use my glasses. But
Yeah, what I noticed, but I think thinking about the scale is normal. Your value stream goes actually from me, from left to right. So I mean, you do all those steps in your journey with the customer.
yeah,
but you're so big, you're working at that scale that it's not possible to create teams that actually encompass a large part of the value stream. So whatever the teams are that in the boxes below,
yeah,
they only comprise a very, very small part of a value stream, which also means they will have a lot of dependencies inevitably on
yeah,
other parts of the organization. That's inevitably seen as scale.
yeah. So even if we go to, I think if you to elaborate on that point, even if we have a more loosely coupled landscape, which is currently kind of starting to happen, then still functionally in your whole journey you need this service from that team, this service from that team, even if they would be loosely coupled. Yeah, that is true. Yeah, to a certain extent you get it in a lot of companies, right? And when I worked at Bol.com, yeah, as a customer, I have first thing is an account service. I need to log on. I have a shopping basket. I have a checkout service, a delivery. So for the full experience of searching, finding, buying, paying, yeah, you go through to like 20 teams. That is true. But then what worked really well there is that it's so loosely coupled and that all the teams are very close to this way of working. So lots of collaboration, but in a cheaper way, kind of. Yeah, so true. Yeah, a few other things that are interesting is that yeah, I interact is front end, and a bit to your point, yeah, all the teams who build services in the end they are exposed via the front end. So you could argue, yeah, whether it's a trade-off for us, right? So it's not necessarily good or bad thing, because yeah, if you would put front-end skills in all these teams, then you have another challenge, like how do you then still align from design perspective and so forth. Yeah, so that's another one. Let's check. Yeah, for example, e-mobility. So that's like the charging stations on the street to plug your car into. That's or at home. In the end, e-mobility is, you can also look at e-mobility as another offer we have to customers for which you give insights and for which you have invoices and collection. So do you want to have an e-mobility team that provides an e-mobility system, or do you want to make sure that your invoicing solution is just working for e-mobility? So that's also a challenge that you have, is like, what do you get if you organize it this way? You need to be really careful if you have an e-mobility team that just focuses on one product, the charging stations, that you don't get an architecture where you have a charging station solution independently of the rest of the company. That's why, yeah, we're also discussing like, there's a good reason to do it now, by the way, because one of the reasons to do this is no energy company in the Netherlands makes a lot of money on e-mobility. So it's very much trying like what works, how can you make money, what makes customers happy. So you can make it architecturally perfect, but it might be that 2 years down the line we stop with it. So in this case it makes sense to quickly put something in the market, test if it works. If it works, we have a nice problem, but then we need to solve it somewhere else in the landscape. If it doesn't work, then it's just a throwaway application.
Yeah, I'm a sense, so I have some inside knowledge.
Yeah, that's no problem.
The enablement art, is it a problem or a danger that it becomes everything else art with teams that just own things because it doesn't belong to any other team?
If that happens, it would be a problem, because indeed that's not the intent. everything we do should be linked to a problem that we solve for a customer and should be within one of these verticals. Yeah, and the enablement and platform is really to help these teams build, deploy, and run fast at scale and yeah, in a stable way, basically, and not to build features because others cannot. Yeah, it's very much about non-functionals. Yeah, and enablement. Yeah, that's why it's called enablement. Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, well, I was just wondering, I also see that you have an SAP platform,
Yeah.
and you put it in the box of the, I think, platforms, or the platform teams, but I'm wondering, in a lot of cases, SAP contains a lot of business logic, so the question for me would be, if you make changes in your invoicing system, in your payment system, in your, I don't know what
Yeah.
system, do they also require, in many cases, changes in the SAP system? Because this is the kind of dependency that can be really...
Yeah, so these teams, so Ascent people, correct me if I'm wrong, but these teams are basically SAP, these are teams with SAP skills. Yeah. So there's a SAP base, so it's actually called SAP Basis, which is a term that's used a lot in the SAP world. So they are basically a platform team for the other teams. Yeah, 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 yeah. But it's a big mix technology-wise, but there's SAP skills in these verticals. Yeah.
So they put the basic structure in place, the SAP platform team,
Yeah.
structure in place,
Yeah.
and others build on top of it.
Yeah, they do things like what's called in SAP like transport management, which is just getting from left to right. But yeah, that sort of stuff. Yeah, so but now the nice thing, so imagine that we move away from the more monolithic systems and with high dependencies and also large fault domains, that each team building its own service or set of services that can communicate via the API. The rest is internal. If you deploy, make sure you do it zero downtime. If you have a new version, think about backwards compatibility. If you consume a service, make sure that you're resilient for the fact that some teams don't make it backwards compatible because they screw up. Yeah, so you, from the consumer side, you also need to take care of that. If we follow these principles, and then also the architectural principles of loosely coupled, that's regardless how you technically do that. Yeah, we are basically in a really good shape in if you look at the current pace we're doing, like at the end of this year, we're in a really good shape where we have arts that are independent, teams that are independent, building, deploying, run in parallel, running, being able to take ownership because it's really clear where the issue is if there's an issue, so your time to resolve will increase. Looking at current architecture where you have larger deployments, also with the smaller deployments, you already see teams now in a new stack releasing for X% of the customers, and also, basically, who cares if you have 100 errors or 100 downtimes a day if they all take a few seconds, right? But unfortunately, in the past, we had a few downtimes that take like really long. So it's going to actually look pretty smooth, I have to say. My last section. So who's the one on the left? Kees, Jansma, and the one in the middle? And the other one? You need to be a bit older, sorry? Yeah. So 3 cases. So I have 3 cases. Case 1. Oh, this one was... so did we actually guess the right one? Okay, good. You work in Rotterdam, right? You should have known, but did you know or not? Okay. Ask your colleagues. He's famous. All right. So we make that transition to from Lambda to from TIBCO to TypeScript on Lambda, and we had 2 options. You can add the TypeScript Lambda skills to the existing teams and have them combine the technical transition with the product roadmap, or you do a dedicated team who does a technical transition, and in the meantime the others keep on focusing on the product development. But then that team has a is just technically focused. So which one would you choose? Anyone?
I assume you want to keep the people that you have, because they have already all the knowledge.
Okay, yeah,
You have just throw away, phase out, and bye-bye.
yeah,
And then have totally new people who maybe leave the company soon.
yeah. So then you would go for?
I assume you move to the transition instead of a transformation. So keep the people systematically maybe.
So add the new skills to that existing team or something.
Yeah, but with enabling teams or facilitating.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, so interesting because you mentioned a point that's also worth mentioning from a Ascent perspective. So what we did is, let's say you have a team for service X and it runs on TIBCO, then they just keep on delivering on a roadmap, and we introduced a what we call Lambda team, obviously because they do Lambda stuff, who just forklift that thing into, so the endpoint is like then backwards compatible, right? That the endpoint remains the same, but the implementation is moved from TIBCO to Lambda. So it's a separate team. And then once that team is done, they need to, of course, hand over the new solution to the product team. But what we do is that the people who are at Ascent on the payroll, so not so much for the externals, because external TIBCO engineers, yeah, they're TIBCO engineers, so it's up to them what to do. But internal people get the opportunity to join a masterclass where they learn TypeScript development and make that transition. And so they will then, after that masterclass, land in the product team where they then do TIBCO Lambda TypeScript development. And for us, from a good employer perspective, we found that that's the least we should do. So it's our decision to move away from this solution to that one, and we give people the opportunity to do that. And we were kind of not sure, like, okay, some people maybe can do it but don't want it. Some people can do it and they want it, and others cannot do it. But so far, the outcome of the bootcamp and the masterclass is actually most are on a sufficient level to start. And a few didn't want to because they see themselves as TIBCO engineers, but that's also fine. Yeah.
I'm curious, is it then mostly a decision made because of how you felt the people were at that point able to adopt? Or is it the decision made because of time and the fact that you could more quickly?
Yeah, it's more that last point, I think. People from Ascent, feel free to add, but I think it's more that this solution makes it much more predictable, because with a Lambda team who does that lift and shift, you can get to things like, okay, what's the velocity in terms of your average endpoint, and its implementation takes like 2.5 weeks for one developer or 3.5 weeks for one developer. So you can kind of calculate, if we have this capacity, and then considering diminishing returns, where do we end up in time with the full transition from TIBCO to Lambda? If you give the existing product teams the task to make the transition, it becomes less predictable because they also do product development and other priorities come up. So for us, it was really about the speed and the predictability.
Do you feel that with the fact that you lifted the solution out of the team that was owner of it, because I felt in your statement before that ownership is very important, that you might have lost that sense of ownership and potentially also motivation and knowledge because of that? And
Yes.
is that worthwhile then?
Yeah, so that is exactly the point about which one would you choose, because what we chose does not just have benefits. And what you mentioned is exactly the drawback. Because now some people developed implemented that endpoint on a new stack, they move it back to a team. Are you on the shifting end or the receiving end? Oh, good. Oh, yeah. All shifting. So they throw that shit over the wall. No. So, of course, we need to handle this with care, because people did that lift and shift, and others need to run it. But how would you feel if you need to run what somebody else built? yeah, what in the end will happen, of course, the further we get, that Lambda team is a temporary team. Yeah, it's just so it will cease to exist at the end of the year, maybe Q1 next year. And then, of course, these people may, I see some people having doubts, but
That's typical that they say we may be gonna stop next year, and then after 5 years.
no, I don't think, no. We have
Because we tried, I think what I see from the history from a stand-up in the Central
Okay.
now, so but I heard stories, is that there were many places where we did try to leave this in the team, to make them, to have both portfolio things on the backlog, but also the tech transition. And what it ended up is with the tech transition from 5 years, that's still not done.
no.
So then you get like these
Yeah.
endless things that are like, a lot of things that are like 80% decommissioned.
Yeah. Yeah, what will, so it's what you say is that things take longer, but this will probably also take a bit longer than we think now. But also there will be some time where you say, okay, we're going to freeze TIPCO development. If you want something new in that product that's still in TIPCO, you first gotta lift it. That's also a way to get rid of it. So we'll probably move to like an 80% done by the Lambda team or Lambda teams, and at that stage we'll, and then we'll sort it in priority of like, hey, which products do we change a lot and which not so much. And then the ones that you don't change so much are in the lower 20%. And then you do a freeze and then you agree with the business like, okay, if you want to make a change there, you're going to pay for moving it, yeah, first. So that's like a way. But I need to go to the next case because otherwise we will be here at midnight. But it's just to illustrate the trade-offs and that we chose this one, but like you said, big. Well, not so much velocity as you know it in the Scrum training, but more like a number that says, okay, with having done so many endpoints, we know that one engineer of this level takes so much time to do one endpoint. So you can kind of calculate it roughly. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's the wrong side. There was case again. All right, another one. So let's say we want to introduce dynamic pricing. It's a new pricing model. So maybe some of you have like a fixed contract with an energy company. Few people have dynamic pricing. So you basically pay what the price is at the moment that you use your energy. And yeah, we want to offer that to customers. Would you have a team that makes everything work for dynamic pricing? Or would you let the contract team, the invoice team, the energy insights team all do their own part of dynamic pricing? It also has trade-offs. And I'll explain this one a bit just to kind of speed up and save some time. So we have a part that is pretty much new stack already and still a part that is older stack, and this touches a lot upon the older stack. And because of all the dependencies, and because we have this anyway, we decided to introduce a team that does this, but that does it then in the code of the other teams. And then again, you have the trade-off, a bit in line with what you just said, is that you need to check with the other teams like, okay, we're making a change, but we're a temporary team, so you need to run it. So it's not just benefits, but for us the benefit is that it makes it more predictable to do so, because you have guaranteed all the skills in the team who can basically burn down the stories, and you don't have to fight with other stakeholders for priority. And for us it's a very important thing to deliver in time, so that's why we did this. Yeah. But it's totally against my own principles, where I want products that just have a new pricing model instead of pricing as a product.
Yeah, by the way, after the previous presentation, this is like an interesting thing, because you say the main reason to do it is because we want to get rid of all the fighting for the budget and the resources, which is like conflicting priorities inside of the same organization, which we solve by making a separate team. Because then we get the focus.
Yeah.
We actually have the budget secured already.
Yeah.
We know those people will only be focusing on this thing, and that's why we can get it done. But actually, the other way would be open if we would have another way to communicate about those priorities and align at another level in the organization, so that everybody
Yes. So on top level, we don't have a conflict there because we agreed like this much capacity for product development, this much capacity for technical improvements. Then you can still choose, let's say it's 50-50, then I can still say in the product teams, I do it 50-50, or I do a product team and a transition team. And if we do it the way we did it, the advantage is that the product team has basically only one stakeholder instead of two. So it's not like fighting really, they both get the same goal, but it makes meetings a lot easier because they just have one stakeholder and they just have one stakeholder. But that was our trade-off sort of, yeah.
How do you manage it on the floor of the developers? Because if I have to touch code of another developer or a completely different team, I need to learn the code base, I need to make changes, my code styling is different. So how do you manage that, maybe frustrations at that level? Because I can imagine that indeed you have only one stakeholder at that level, it's fine, but now you get the frustrations one level deeper, I guess.
Yeah, that's a good one, and I don't know the details of all the tech stacks that are touched here, if somebody from Ascent knows. But there's a piece of SAP here, there's a piece of this, a piece of that, so dynamic pricing is kind of all over the place. But yeah, I can give you like a general answer is that you need to, yeah?
That maybe helps. So what I know from the team composition is that people in teams were chosen from invoicing. So one person from invoicing, one person people were already familiar with the certain parts of the that code base.
We communicate in a non-violent way.
That's really important. But you mentioned now, so you pick from every team that needs to be touched, you created one team from people in existing teams. And that's basically the same as...
We have code owners, so you will send the MR to the team. And
Yes, they will review it.
Yeah, okay, but what I mean is you say we decided to have two teams.
Yeah.
One team is focusing on the product, one is focusing on the migration. But this team that focuses on the migration exists of people from all the teams that we have to migrate. Then what is the difference of having one person in that team doing the migration, inside the team having the knowledge and share it there?
Yeah,
What is the benefit then of pulling those people out of the team and dedicated focus maybe? Yeah, but you can give that person as well dedicated focus in that team.
Yeah, but I do think that, let's say if you would propose to do it that way, but I'm not saying that this is your solution might be a better way. We also had this discussion and we ended up with this one. No, but yeah, so like the suggestion, the alternative that you suggest. So it might very well be, and we kind of had a trade-off, and at a certain stage you got to make a call, and that's what we did. But I think in the end, in the long run, with a more loosely coupled landscape, yeah, we don't want to do this.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think it's more like a bad days until we have that. So we know the one
Yeah.
of organization
It's
Yeah, but I was curious on that. What is the result of the decision you made
Yeah,
at
so
the
yeah.
lower level? Because the frustration is now from, let's say, management level and maybe
to
down.
summer. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah,
So
that's what we
I was
maybe. Yeah,
wondering.
yeah.
Okay.
How do you manage increasing autonomy of these teams? Because it feels a little like you're not removing the technical data, not decoupling a lot of the technical components.
In this project, not.
Right.
No, this is just introducing a new pricing model to existing. Yeah. Yeah.
So you don't necessarily spend time on technical debt. The goal is to
In
just
this
get
one,
dynamic
yeah.
pricing out the door.
Yeah. So, but it's something we need to take care of. What you say now is that makes me think that you need to be careful that you don't decide on a team structure and then, like you said, okay, but now it's in the head of the managers, it works. But okay, now the people need to fix it. We need to make sure that doesn't
My
happen.
follow-up question is, how do you measure these things? Do you have like a kind of way that you measure you talk about that we can predict how much they can do, so they're predictable.
Yeah, it's not in this case, but in the other one. Yeah.
You had to like numbers on predictability.
Yeah.
But how do you keep in mind like all the other aspects of, I think, the team building stuff and motivation level and that kind of stuff? Do you have metrics? Do you measure that as well? So I'm curious about that topic. How do you measure those?
Yeah, not specifically for this project, but yeah, we do. So we're doing like surveys, for example, to see how people are feeling, and we can, well, to make that sort of anonymous, you cannot do that on team level, right? But on art level, for example, we recently had like a fishbowl session with a bunch of people where we got good feedback that we want to follow up in follow-up fishbowls or other sort of sessions in other formats to collect the feedback from people. So yeah, not sure if that's what you're looking for, but it's not just about numbers and.
You need to have somewhere a baseline, of course, with motivation level and see what's happening.
And what, yeah,
Or
yeah. But I think what you say is an interesting point. Is so my takeaway from that is you can look at it from maybe from a project management perspective, but how do people actually feel if you do it like this? That's the important part. Yeah.
Yep. And to that point, very often, in my opinion, that's the reason why those kinds of decisions are made, because the forecasting kind of thing, you can number it, you can get
yeah, and the other part not so much. Yeah.
The thing, the impact on the team, what is the
yeah.
feeling of what is the actual impact of other people messing with their code, and maybe in 2 years finding out there is some bugs that are very, very hard to solve,
yeah.
because those people, that's something that is very much more difficult to calculate, so the decision is there, we're not even going to try. What
yeah.
we're going to do is we're going to go with a number that we can calculate, and that's going to guide
yeah.
probably
yeah.
the decision making in the
yeah.
first place.
Yeah.
And I'm not talking about indeed the motivation at the level of the, let's say, hands. If they are not happy anymore, they leave. And how much does it cost them and the predictability?
Yeah, yeah.
So it's more the takeaway bottom up instead of.
Yeah, yeah. All right. So yeah, to the point just made, like with the code owners, we kind of you do a code review when you still involve them. But then what happens when there's time pressure, and one other point I wanted to make is that it's not that the people that we have in that other case, the people in the Lambda team are highly qualified engineers, so it's not like they're developing shit, right? So,
No,
but still,
definitely not what
but still, people of course have different opinions. So that's what will always happen, I guess. Like, okay, you did it like this, I would have done it differently. Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Always.
Yeah.
The first rule is if you get stuff from another developer, call it shit.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So app development is another one. So yeah, does anyone have experience with like really large scale app development, like with yeah? Okay, a large scale app development. Yeah. So how do you solve that? For example, our app has like you have your invoicing, you have your energy inside, you have your contract, you have your account details. There's so much functionality provided by all these teams from these journeys, but there's one app. And unlike a web application where you could kind of decompose it and deploy independently the parts, and we also don't want to push an app like every hour to customers or something. So how do you solve that? How do we avoid that one app team becomes the bottleneck when a lot of other teams are...
This sounds like a technical problem to me. So I would expect a technical solution.
Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah, because even if you would... So we have one app development team. Even if you would say all the other teams get an app developer so they can do it themselves, it's still a technical... They're still in the same app, right? Yeah, so it's a technical issue.
Yeah, I think I'm the least technical person maybe in the room, but I think if everyone has the ownership and the possibility to release code whenever it's needed, that will kind of give them the autonomy to release whenever it's needed and not wait in a monolithical mindset until everyone is ready to do 1 or 2 releases per year. So like trend-based development, for example.
Yeah, okay.
I wonder why you mentioned that you don't want to have every hour, like you can update, auto update, so there is no need for worrying that customer
Okay.
has an update, because people are used to that.
But do you mean native app here? or an Android app. Yeah, so if you deploy that one, you need to go through all the signing and the Apple process and stuff that takes hours and maybe days.
So you do that.
Yeah.
You usually do that less frequent.
Yeah, you do it
Yeah.
less frequent because it takes a lot of time and
Yeah.
process-wise.
So the frequency low, and it's also basically one deployable thing, right? It's the whole app. It's not like I change the screen, can you please push that one? So how do you that kind of then create that? Whether I put the app developers in the product teams or I have an app development team, you still have that issue, right? In app development.
Well, app development team is not a value thing, that's not a value stream.
No?
It's technical requirement.
Yeah, exactly.
So I would, from the top of my head, I would say complex subsystem team.
Yeah, that it sounds. Yeah.
To deal with that complexity of releasing as least as possible, while still getting all the other teams ready to actually release stuff when they're ready.
Okay.
Yeah, I kind of agree. I worked for some time as a coach for the Belgian transport company, the Lijn, and their app. It isn't one app team that does the app, but behind the scenes, what they try to do is the way you would do it by the team topologist logic is that the other teams try to expose whatever they need to get into the app in an abstract as possible way, so that there is no constant need for interaction with every little change. But the team is a very separate team, and the rhythm of releasing, as already suggested here, is also different from what they do on the web platform.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that sounds a bit familiar to what I did when I worked at Park Mobile. But how do you have something to add to that?
Why does it need to be a native app?
That is a solution Jumbo took this year.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same problem. So we're making a web app, which means that the web teams are also able to deploy to the app at will, effectively. And the app is offered as a platform by a platform team.
Yeah. I don't know if anybody used the Railbank app. That's fully web.
Yeah.
That app is the same on your phone as on desktop. That's exactly the same code running, only
Okay.
in a different style. And we
All right.
deploy 8 to 10 times a day.
Okay.
Maybe one interesting thing, because Jumbo is also starting Monday, actually, transitioning into a new team based on team topology, to streamline teams. But one of the challenges we're facing is that our teams, they were customer journey aligned as well. So lots of parallels there, is that in our teams, the front-end developers are actually embedded in the team. But now we're seeing that we're clearly defining what teams are responsible for, domains. Domains are very heavily back-end focused. So now we're wondering, where do we put our front-end developers if a finding team responsible for search becomes a search platform team? A platform should generally not have front-end capabilities.
Mm-hmm.
So the question we're asking ourselves, and I'm curious maybe if you have the answer as well, is where will the front-end developers go that expose these capabilities of the search platform? Does that become a front-end team?
Yeah. So so I can, but the best way to answer this is an example of my period at bol.com, actually, where I worked with the search team as well, where we also provided what we called a shop find service, which was basically search engine underneath. And yeah, although it's like a web shop with a lot of front end, the front end development was actually relatively low compared to all the other stuff that's underneath there. And there was that was at the time when bol.com was still a lot smaller, so back in 2011-12, there we had a front-end developers pool, and at the time that the search team was ready to expose its features into the front-ender was joining the team to actually implement it.
Yeah. A sort of an enablement team of front-enders to enable another team.
Yeah, and then joining them, physically being there temporarily to embed it into the web page. Yeah, that's what they did.
I'm also curious.
I don't know, maybe it's a terminology problem, but a platform team doesn't expose its features to end users, right? So the platform team offers the infrastructure for other teams to streamline to build some features on top of it. So if you have a search platform, then that search platform owns what's needed to build search services within different domains. And then those domains get their own front-end development, and then they can build whatever they need and expose it there.
So their search was the product. Yeah, so you enter a shop, you search something, you find something, put it in the shopping basket, these are the products, so this was a search product, and then, not so much a platform team, but wait, first.
Maybe something that can help in clarifying things with a bit of pragmatism is that team topologies also uncovered that the platform team actually doesn't exist. So they are now calling it a platform grouping, meaning that very often delivering a platform requires multiple types of teams. This also means that if you think of Conway's law and you want to minimize the fragmented feeling that users have from the products or the services that you're delivering, that it could make sense that front-end development is included in a platform grouping. So I would always go for the feeling of the customer and ensuring that people who need to communicate with each other in order to ensure the best possible user experience are in the same team or in the same group.
One more point and then we're going to wrap it up.
But I'm always curious because I hear a lot like platform teams and end customers, and the thing that I'm currently trying to fight within the Rabobank, we also have this platform team and different stuff, front-end developers there. But I think what is going wrong most of the time is we're a platform team. We have end customers, and that are not you and me using the app, but that are the other developers on the other side.
Yeah.
And that's, at least at Rabobank, currently I think is going wrong, is that we don't see as platform our end customers. So we just think, oh, this is what they probably need, so this is what we will build. Instead of going to customers, so our fellow developers in feature teams, what do you need?
Yeah. Yeah. So the platform.
So you need to, I think the main point is identify your end customer. And it doesn't have to be the guy on the street using your product.
It's not always a customer, it can be internal customer.
It's a developer, So the customer of the platform team is a developer.
Other product teams as their customers.
Yes.
That's how we're, by the way.
The X as a service, I think that then your end customer is other people.
Yeah, so this team also has a product manager and product owners. So there's a product manager for this art, and they have product owners, and their stakeholders are the development teams. It's an important point. So the platform as a product, case again, sorry. Just one more point, because you raised your hand.
No, I just
Okay.
also wanted to mention that it's always essential to know your customers and to develop the platform together with the customers, and that is the essence of platform.
Right, and I think for Ascent it's going to help us really a lot that the upcoming year we're going to really get better at organizing teams around customer problems within these journeys, and then making it also technically more loosely coupled. These teams can more easily work in parallel. If they then work on a self-service platform that sees these engineers as their customers, then we'll get in a really good spot. And then to kind of wrap it up, if you do look back at when it was a low interest product and the tech choices and the level of engineering we had then, now with high interest product, the new traffic, the new need for speed and the architecture and the level of engineering we have then, we're in a really good spot.
How is this problem solved by Ascent? Just to understand the...
Really simple. No.
I'm just curious, because this is a problem indicator, right? Did Ascent solve this problem? Or will solve?
We are in a transition to,
And the direction being, in that transition, what is the direction that this will be solved in then? How will app development be performed?
Oh, for this one specifically. Oh, sorry, I was kind of wrapping it up. I was going to this, but no, but so no, this was actually, so I wanted it to be interactive because I thought it's nice to tell a story and that you hear from us, but for me this was also a question for you. So I'm going to take this one to the team with your input as well, like, hey, let's check with Jumbo and Rabobank how we're doing, and let's see. And so it's
months, so, this is the thing we'll be thinking about.
So this was not we currently also don't really have a big issue here, like if you would have a backlog of things on the app team where everybody's waiting to move to production, we would have an urgent problem to solve. That's currently not the case. But I'm also looking like 2 years ahead, with all the product plans we have, I'd like to solve it. And then it's nice to have your input so that I give something to you today and you gave something for me. So thank you very much for that. All right. Well, thanks a lot, everyone.